Welcome back. In this task, you're to work on the 5th segment of your classroom management plan. The focus of this assignment is to develop your overall classroom procedures. Here is an explanation of the 5th section of your custom classroom management plan. Criteria 5, classroom procedures. In this section, the teacher is to think about classroom procedures, and this could overlap with criteria 4. Each classroom is going to be different depending upon the grade, the school, and the subject matter. This section is to include any procedures for a smooth operation of your classroom and includes procedures to follow in the event of an emergency. The ineffective teacher begins the first day of school attempting to teach a subject and spends the rest of the year running after the students, while an effective teacher spends most of the first week teaching the students to follow classroom procedures. Information on this topic can be found in the First Days of School textbook, beginning on pages 165 through 222. Okay, so why do you need procedures for your classroom? This is the foundation of your classroom management plan. What are the daily routines and procedures that should be followed in your classroom? There may be specific policies handed down from your building administrator that needs to be implemented to assure your classroom is well managed, safe, and an orderly environment that is conducive to learning and encourages respect for all of your students. Additionally, you must develop other procedures to be followed for the smooth daily operation, but the focus is on the whole class. A well-managed classroom does not just happen on its own, it must be developed. It is developed by teaching student procedures and how you expect your students to act, behave, and respond appropriately at certain times of the day or in the event of emergency. Now, this will again be dependent upon your grade level, your building, as well as your students. Now note, it is the policy of the Savannah-Chatham County Public Schools for each classroom to have a red emergency preparedness and response plan flip chart. Now this is provided to each classroom teacher at the beginning of the school year and is to be returned at the end of the academic year. This flip chart is to be taken with and used by the classroom teacher in the event of an emergency and all emergency evacuations. The classroom teacher is responsible for each student and needs to know the whereabouts of each student in an emergency. Now, this may require that the teacher take attendance when the class must evacuate the building. And part of your classroom procedures would include having a student roll for each class tucked into the emergency flip chart and updated as needed to be able to take attendance when your class reassembles at a designated meeting place after evacuating the building. Now this also means you must know where your students are at all times. For if you're missing a student, you must signal you need help to locate the missing student. Now one of the procedures is to designate a specific meeting point, and students need to be trained and drilled on these procedures to prevent panic when an emergency arises. The emergency flip chart contains 12 different emergency scenarios, and it's important that the classroom teacher read, become familiar with, and teach an awareness of required emergency response actions to students. Now, you don't need to duplicate these procedures in your classroom management plan, for you can simply refer to the chart. The key point is for the teacher to have an awareness and a plan in the event of an emergency and teach students, so students have a familiarity with what to do in the event of an emergency. Now, the teachings of emergency awareness should always be age appropriate, and with all procedures you may need to remind and reteach as needed. So just like in the last task, remember you must develop your procedures and a plan to teach these procedures to your students. So the key here is overall classroom management procedures as well as emergency procedures. Okay, again, Work on this. If you've got any questions, reach out to your fellow classmates on this and post in the discussion.